You are welcome to GMAETS 41. This is a continuation class of the class we had yesterday when we introduced the concept of how to evaluate the sine, cos, and tan of special angles without calculator. We have to finish up with what we started. And I had to host this class now so that much later by 8:30, 9 p.m. I would apply the knowledge of what we have learned here to solve, 1-2 questions as the case might be. All right. So in our previous class, when we treated this concept, we stopped actually at evaluating, I think, tan 135, which we said is equivalent to minus tan 45. Okay, but unfortunately, everywhere went dark. So quickly, let us finish up with the remaining special angles. Remember, I stated I was going to take it down to 360 and then add a little bonus. So we had already explained that tan 135 is equal to minus tan 45. And tan 45 using this right angle triangle is 1. So if you're talking about minus tan 45, tan 45 is 1. So minus tan 45 is going to give us minus 1. Now the next special angle is 150. So let us go ahead to obtain the value of sine 150, cos 150, and tan 150. Please, if you are just tuning into this GMAETS 41's channel, at the end of this class, you can check through the channel, okay? Under the live section, you will get to see our classes so far on these special angles. So you can follow up and, of course, cue in with what we are doing right away in this class. So let us evaluate sine 150 as the next special angle, because after 135, it is 150. In our previous class yesterday, I explained that once you are dealing with angles in the second quadrant, because 150 is between 90 and 180, it is here, you have to subject it to the power of 180 degrees. So we are going to subtract 150 from 180. This is going to give us sine 180 minus 150. So sine 150 is equivalent to sine 30 degrees, which means if you obtain sine 150, you get the same value as sine 30 degrees. And we know already from our acute angles, our acute special angles, we've already obtained values from 0 to 90. Sine 30 is 1/2. You are using this triangle. Are you following this right angle triangle? So do your sine 30 there. You're going to get 1/2. So I'm going to say that sine 150, which is equivalent to sine 30, is 1/2, which is the same as, of course, 0.5. This is going to be positive because in the second quadrant, sine is positive there. In the second quadrant, sine is positive. Now, this will take us to cos 150. Permit me to check the network situation before we proceed. All right, sine 100 and cos 150 is the next one we are going to look at. Those that have connected to the class, welcome to the class. Please, I want to finish up this quickly so I wouldn't have much time to interact fully right now. Let's move on to cos 150. Like I said, I want us to finish this so that later by 9 o'clock, at least just one question, we apply the knowledge of this concept, why you should take it seriously. Cos 150 is going to be minus cos 180 minus 150. Okay, yes, I'm using minus this time around because in the second quadrant, cos has negative value. It is only sine. This S here represents sine. It's only sine that is positive there. Cos and tan will be negative. So cos 150 is equal to negative cos 30. And cos 30, again, you're using this right angle triangle. Cos 30 is going to give you √3/2. So this is going to be equal to negative √3/2. Negative square root of 3 divided by 2. This is the value of cos 150 without your calculator. Let's move on to tan 150. You are doing the same thing. Tan 150 will be equal to minus tan 180 minus 150, which will give you minus tan 30. Once again, in the second quadrant, tan is negative there, since it's only sine that is positive. Okay, so let's continue. Tan 150. Tan 150 is equal to negative tan 180 minus 150. Please, like I said, if you are just joining this class, this is a continuation of a class we had yesterday. So at the end of this particular live class, you can go back to the live section of GMAETS 41's channel, check the video lesson just before this one. Okay, you get to learn all the things I've explained, whose knowledge we are now applying here as it stands. So this is minus tan 30. So you want to ask yourself, what is the value of tan 30? The value of tan 30, once again, you're using this right angle triangle, TOA. That is going to be 1 over root 3. And we have this table I generated from it already. Tan 30 is 1 over root 3. Like I stated in that class yesterday, you don't need to cram all these things. If you can memorize them, fine, nothing wrong. But it's best to memorize these right angle triangles, 2 of them. That's key in evaluating all of this. So this is going to be minus 1 divided by square root of 3. And of course, if you use further knowledge of maths, like in SOLD, you can rationalize this. You get minus root 3 divided by, I think, 3. Let us move on to the next special angle. We are done with 150. In the second quadrant, after 150, the next special angle is 180 degrees. It's 180 degrees. And the good thing about that 180 degrees is this. The value you have in the 180 degrees is similar to the values of 0 degree. Remember, this is a straight line, a straight horizontal line. So I remember that we stated yesterday that cos 0 is 1. So cos 180 will be minus 1, since it is on the left-hand side here. If you observe this left-hand side, the second quadrant and the third quadrant, they cover that 180. Now, in the second quadrant, it's only sine that is positive there. The third quadrant is only tan that is positive there. Cos does not exist here. So cos in the second and third quadrant will give you negative. Therefore, if I have cos 0 to be equal to 1, then cos 180 will be opposite of the value of cos 1, which of cos 0, which of course we expect to get minus 1. So no time to waste there. Let's be fast. So we are talking about sine 180, cos 180, but I've just analyzed that of cos 180. Now, if I talk about sine 180, that of course is still going to give you sine 180 minus 180. Are you following? Subject it to sine 180 minus 180, which will now give us that sine 180 degrees is equal to sine 0. And what is the value of sine 0? Sine 0 is equal to 0. So if that is the case, it means that sine 180 degrees will give you 0. Of course, that is what we expect. Because like I stated in our class yesterday, along the horizontal, sine does not exist there. Sine exists along the vertical. Sine 90 is 1. You have it here. By the time we get to 270, sine 270 will be opposite of sine 90, which will be minus 1. So sine does not exist on the horizontal. That is why we have 0 here. Next, let us talk about cos 180. Cos 180. Cos 180. Cos 180, we follow the same format. It's going to be minus cos 180 minus 180. And that is going to give us that cos 180 is equal to minus cos 0. We know already that cos 0 is equal to 1. So cos 180 is equal to minus 1. That's cool. What about tan 180? Let's find out. Tan 180. Remember, to work out tan in this case, you can use sine 0 over cos, cos 0. Sine 180 is actually going to be sine 180 divided by cos 180. And if you subject it to what we've explained, we are going to find out that the value of tan 180 will give us, let's see, tan 180 will be equal to sine 180 divided by cos 180. And of course, you know that sine 180 is 0 divided by cos 180, which is minus 1. Therefore, tan 180 should give us 0. Because 0 divided by minus 1 is 0. This is interesting. We are done with all the angles above. That is from 0 to 180 degrees. How to get the values of sine, cos, and tan of those special angles. We shall now move on to the third quadrant. How do we evaluate the sine, cos, and tan of angles in the third quadrant? Let me check the network situation before we proceed with that. We are moving on. DH roof tripartite. What is sine 37? Don't worry, 37 is not a special angle, so we are coming to that. Are you following, right? I want you friends to learn the values of special angle first. That's the most important thing. Before you can now apply certain knowledge to obtain the value of sine, cos, and tan of non-special angles. Please let us move on to the next special angle. Once again, Chinedu, I think I see you there. You're welcome to join the class. Always happy to see you around, you know, of course, with many more. That is with many of you others. So we move on to the next special angle. After 180, the next special angle is 210. In our last two classes before the one of yesterday, okay, last two classes, I already explained how you generate the special angle. So when I say that after 180, the next special angle is 210, you should know how I got it. Okay, 30, 15, 15, 30 degrees generator. 30, 15, 15, 30. We are at 180. If you add 30 to it, you get 210. Now, how do we get the value of sine, cos, and tan of special angles in the third quadrant? Remember, the third quadrant is still subjected to this horizontal side 180. So it means that you're going to subject all the angles in the third quadrant to 180 degrees. But remember that this time around, these values are greater than 180. So instead of doing 180 minus these angles in the third quadrant, you'll be doing the angles in the third quadrant minus 180 degrees. So this is going to be sine 210 will give us, in the third quadrant, it is tan, only tan that is positive there. Only tan that is positive there. Are you following? Sine and cos, they are negative in the third quadrant. So sine 210, which is in the third quadrant, we go with a negative value. So this is going to be minus sine, open bracket, 210 minus 180. I hope this has not cut off. Let me check. All right, it's showing. It's showing. So that sine 210 will now be equal to minus 210 minus 180 is going to give us 30. So that's going to be minus sine 30. This is cool. You now see how we converted 210 to an acute angle in the first quadrant, whose value we already know. You see, you remember how I generated all these values from 0 to 90. Sine 30 is 1 over 2. Therefore, sine 210 will be equal to minus 1 over 2. Remember, 210 is in the third quadrant. Sine is negative there. So sine 210 is equal to minus 1 over 2. We are moving on to the next, cos 210. Okay, let me write that. Can I write it here? I wipe this. Without wasting time, cos 210, cos 210 will be equal to, remember in the third quadrant, cos is also negative. So it's going to be minus cos, open bracket, 210 minus 180, which is going to give you cos 30. No time to waste, so let me go straight on. Cos 30. So cos 210 will now have the value minus cos 30. Of course, you know, you're going to obtain it from here, which is root 3 over 2. So the value is going to be minus root 3 divided by 2. That's the value of cos 210. We can use this to obtain the value of tan 210. Tan 210 will now be equal to tan 30. And in the third quadrant, tan is positive, so we don't need to fix any negative there again. Mind you, this is the value of sine 210. minus half. Value of cos 210 minus root 3 over 2. So let us now get the value of, let's get the value of tan 210. Now you have two ways you can get it. Converting tan 210 to tan 30, you can obtain that tan 30 directly from here to be 1 over root 3. And like I said, it's going to be positive because in this quadrant, tan is positive. However, there is something I want to show you. If I write tan 210, which is equivalent to tan 30 positive. Now, instead of using maybe tan 30, I can actually use sine 210. Let us use that. Sine 210 divided by cos 210. Remember yesterday, we established that tan is equal to sine over cos. Now we know the value of sine 210. Sine 210 is minus 1 over 2. So I'm going to divide it by cos 210. And cos 210 is minus root 3 divided by 2. You see mathematically that these negatives will cancel. This denominator 2 here will divide this denominator 2. We can conclude therefore that tan 210 is equal to 1 is left in the numerator divided by root 3, which is what you could have obtained directly if you evaluated tan 30. In fact, let me indicate this is equal to tan 30. If you come here and evaluate tan 30, you get 1 over root 3. So either ways, you still get the same result. What is the next special angle after 210? After 210, you meet 225. So let us evaluate sine, cos, and tan of 225. Sine, cos, and tan of 225. Remember that tan 210 is positive because that is in the third quadrant where you have tan to be positive. Okay, we move on to sine 225. That's the next special angle. It's going to be minus sine, open bracket, 225 minus 180. So that sine 225 will now be equivalent to minus sine 225 minus 180 should give us 45. Should give us 45. So this is equivalent to minus 45 in the first quadrant. And we know the value of sine 45 degrees. We know the value of sine 45 degrees. So this would now be minus sine 45. You're using this right angle triangle now for evaluating 45 degrees. Because that's going to be 1 over root 2. So this is going to be minus 1 divided by root 2. We can evaluate cos 225. Let me do that here. Similarly, cos 225 will be equal to minus cos 225 minus 180, which of course would give us that cos 225 will be equal to minus, without wasting time, let's get the value. Minus cos 45, you know. And what is the value of cos 45? Cos 45 will still give you the same value as sine 45. 1 over root 2. So this is going to be minus 1 divided by root 2. Cos 45. Adjacent over hypotenuse. Or if you're using this, cos 45, adjacent over hypotenuse. Let us obtain the value of tan 45. Let's obtain the value of tan 45. Is it tan 45 or tan 225? Tan 225 can be obtained from sine 225 minus cos 225. Just like we did for 210. But this time around, I don't want to go through that part. If you go through that part, you still get the same result. I want us to convert that sine 225 to, that tan 225. I want us to convert it to tan 45 and then get it from there straight. So we have this tan 225 is going to be equal to tan 225 minus 180. So that tan 225 will be equal to negative, will be equal to tan 45. And then tan 225 has this equivalent. If we evaluate tan 45, what would we get? Tan 45 is 1. tan 45 is 1. So that is the value of tan 225. Remember, positive, because in the third quadrant, tan is positive. Let me check the network situation. All right, we are moving. We are done with 225. That takes us to the next special angle. After 225, the next special angle is going to be what? The next special angle should be 240, right? Because 225, if you do your 30, 15, 15, 30 degrees generator, to that 225, you are adding 15 to it. 225 plus 15 should give us 240. So let us evaluate sine, cos, and tan of 240. Sine 240 is going to be equivalent of minus sine, open bracket, 240 minus 180. Remember, you are still operating in the third quadrant. And that's going to be that sine 240 will be equal to minus sine 240 minus 180 will give us 60 degrees. So that sine 240 will now be equal to minus. Let us evaluate sine 60. Both of them are equivalent. Sine 240 and sine 60 are equivalent. The only difference is that one will be positive, the other will be what? Negative, as the case is. Sine 60 alone, if I say you should evaluate it, is positive. But sine 240 will introduce minus sign to the value of sine 60, because 240 is operating now in the third quadrant where only tan is positive. Sine and cos in the third quadrant are negative. What is the value of sine 60? You make use of this right angle triangle, working with this angle. Sine 60 is root 3 divided by 2. So this is going to be minus root 3 over 2. That takes us to cos 240. You do the same thing. Cos 240 is going to be equivalent to minus, please, no time to waste. So instead of me showing you minus cos 240 minus 180, why not just we go as minus cos 60? Because even if I use minus cos 240 minus 180, it will still bounce me back to minus cos 60. So that I will now evaluate that and get the value of cos 240. The value of cos 240 will now give us what? To give us the value of minus cos 60. And what is the value of minus of cos 60 from here? Cos 60, adjacent over hypotenuse, will give us 1 over 2. So that minus cos 60 will now give us minus 1 over 2. And this is actually the value of cos 240. Let us evaluate tan 240. Now, there's something I'm doing about the tan, so you get used to the concept of tan. You can actually solve tan 240 to be equivalent of tan 60. Okay, if I'm working tan 240, it's equal to tan 240 minus 180, which will give us tan 60. And you know it's positive because it is in the third quadrant. Okay, and of course with that, you're evaluating tan 60 directly from here, which is root 3 over 1, simply root 3. But again, I don't want to go through that direction this time around. I don't want to convert tan 240 to tan 60 and then obtain it from here straight. I want to go through another way this time around. You see, I'm just alternating it so you get used to any of the approach you want to use in getting tan. I would like to use these two values of tan, of sine and cos, to obtain tan. Remembering that tan is sine over cos. Sine 240 is minus root 3 over 2. Cos 240 is minus 1 over 2. So let us do that and see. Minus root 3 over 2 and minus 1 over 2. Evaluating tan 240. That's going to be equal to sine 240 divided by cos 240. And that, of course, is going to be equal to sine 240 give us minus root 3 divided by 2. It will be divided by cos 240. Cos 240 gave us equivalent of minus cos 60, which gave us minus 1 over 2. Mathematically, these negatives we cancel. You know that 2 we cancel. Okay, if you divide that fraction. Therefore, tan 240 will be equal to, you are left with root 3 in the numerator divided by 1 in the denominator. Root 3 over 1 would give us root 3. So we have obtained the value of tan 40, tan 240 rather, which is still equivalent to tan 60. And for the tan 60, you could have obtained it directly from here. Now let us move on to the next special angle, which is 270. Because after 240 as the special angle, the next special angle you generated by adding 30 to 240. And of course, that will land us on the next vertical axis, negative y-axis here. Without wasting time, please, remember, on the vertical axis 270, we are trying to obtain sine 270. The value of sine 270 will simply be equal to sine 270 minus sine 180. Sorry, minus 180 rather. Remember, you are operating in this third quadrant. Values they are greater than 180 already, and like I explained, you subtract 180 from them to get the equivalent. But all of those things are waste of time. On the vertical axis, we know that sine exists there. Sine 90, above is positive 1. So sine 270 below will be negative 1. Will be negative because in this quadrant, look at this 270. 70 is between tan and cos. It's between the third and the fourth quadrant. Third quadrant, tan is positive. Fourth quadrant, cos is positive. There is no sign there. So sine will be negative there. That is why this is equal to negative 1 if you have to work it out. But let's see how true it is. This is going to be minus. If you're operating between the third and fourth quadrant, sine is negative. So it's going to be minus sine, open bracket, 270 minus 180, which would give us that sine 270 is equal to minus sine 280. 270 minus 180 will give us what? To give us what? Right? If you subtract this, 270 minus 180 should give us 90. Should give us 90, is that not so? So this is equal to minus sine 90. And you know that sine 90 alone is equal to 1. We already established it in our last class tonight. Okay? So this is going to be sine 270 being equivalent of minus 1. Minus 1. Then what about cos 270? Cos 270 will be 0. Cos does not exist on this vertical. It doesn't. It doesn't. And if you still choose to do that, it's going to be equal to cos 90. Because if you do cos 270 equal to, if you like, you put minus cos 270 minus 180. If you fix the minus there, you don't even need to, because even if you fix, this 270 is between tan and cos. But even if you fix minus cos 90 is 0. We do not have anything like minus 0. So it is simply 0. No time to waste. No time to waste. You can find out. Cos 90, if you do cos 270 is equal to minus cos 270 minus 180. And 270 minus 180 is 90. So you're evaluating minus cos 90. Cos 90 is 0 already. And we don't have anything like minus 0, so it is simply 0. Now let us evaluate tan 270 from this. Let us evaluate tan 270. Let us evaluate tan 270. Of course, you know that tan 270 will be equal to, this time around, I want to use the conversion of 270 to its equivalent. I want to use it to evaluate it. Okay, tan 270 is going to be equal to tan 270, sine 270 rather, divided by cos 270. All right. Now, what's the value of sine 270? Sine 270 gave us minus 1. And what's the value of cos 270? Cos 270 gave us 0. Therefore, tan 270 will be equal to minus 1 over 0. If you divide a term by 0, it doesn't really exist as a real number, so does not exist. Yesterday, I told you you're going to use infinity for it. If you divide a non-zero number by 0, you get a number so large that you do not know the value of that number. If you evaluate this with your calculator, it will tell you math error. The reason is because the result you obtain is not a number that is known to us. Take note of that. We are done with this. Let us now move on finally to the fourth quadrant. Let's move on to the fourth quadrant. I would like to check the network situation. I'd like to check the network situation. All right. Still on. I know it's getting pretty dark, but I just have to finish this. Then later, I'd like to apply the knowledge of students being able to know their special angles and how to evaluate them. I'd like to use that knowledge to solve a question. They're about 9 p.m. so that you appreciate what we have been doing here. Like I said, most exam bodies, they go on CBT exams. And for this CBT exam, these exam bodies have learned not to allow students to use calculators. Otherwise, we have machines that can be used to evaluate certain things. If you are to be tested on angles, in such examination, like I've consistently said, an examiner will not test you on an angle that is not a special angle. Okay, so that is why you just have no choice. You must have to learn this. There are no two ways about it. After 270, what is the next special angle? To generate it, you still add 30, 15, 15, 30, degrees. We are operating on this cardinal point now, 270 degrees. So moving away, we should add 30 to get the next special angle. So the next special angle, 270 plus 30, will give you 300. Let us evaluate sine 300. Now, how do you evaluate sine 300? Angles in the fourth quadrant. Remember, that angle has crossed the path of 180. I had stated that this horizontal is so powerful. The angles there is so powerful. They are so powerful, rather. Are you following, right? 180 degrees, 0 degrees. And don't forget, this 360 degrees is still on the horizontal when you turn a complete circle. We are approaching a complete circle now. So any angle that is in the fourth quadrant is no longer subjected to 180. It's no longer subjected to 180. Rather, it will be subjected to 360, the other angle on the right-hand side of that horizontal. 360 will now be controlling all the angles that are above 270. Are you following, right? Which are angles between 270 and 360. Reflex angles. All the angles above 180, then just before 360, they are reflex angles. So we shall subject this 300 to the power of 360. Now 300 is not up to 368. Therefore, we shall be subtracting these angles in the fourth quadrant from 360. Sine 300 is equal to minus sine 360, then minus this angle whose sine you are trying to evaluate. Remember, the whole idea here is to convert that sine 300 to an acute angle whose value you can easily obtain from this, right angle triangle. Okay, so sine 300 will now be equal to minus. Why do we have minus there? In the fourth quadrant, only cos is positive. If you're evaluating sine of any angle there, evaluating tan of any angle that is greater than 270 already, but less than 360, the sine and tan of such angles will be negative values. It's only cos of that angle that will be positive, because only cos is positive in the fourth quadrant. Now, this is going to be minus sine 360 minus 300 would give us what? 360 minus 300 is going to give us 60 degrees. It's going to give us 60 degrees. So what are we saying in essence? We are saying that sine 300 is the same as sine 60, but with a negative value. What is the value of sine 60? You use this right angle triangle with this angle. That is going to be root 3 over 2. So minus root 3 over 2 will now become the value of sine 300. We can obtain cos 300 as well too, without wasting time. Cos 300 will give us a positive value because in the fourth quadrant, cos is positive. Cos 300 is the same as cos 360 minus 300, which will give us 60, to give us cos 60. So this is simply equal to cos 60. No need of wasting my time writing it out as cos 360 minus 300. And of course, this will now give us that cos 300 will be equal to cos 60. What's the value? Once again, remember I've told you friends yesterday, I have to memorize these two triangles, okay? Cos 60 is 1 over 2. So this is going to be 1 over 2. If you take your calculator and press cos 300, you can always verify what we are doing here. And this is simply giving us 1 divided by 2, 1 over 2 here. Okay? So we can get tan 300, having obtained sine and cos of 300. If you want to get tan 300, you can simply do minus root 3 over 2 divided by 1 over 2. Because, of course, we know that tan is sine over cos. Let us evaluate tan 300. Of course, you know that tan 300 will be equivalent to minus tan 60. You know how we got that 60? I've already done it using sine. It's going to be 360. Let me just show it for this one once again. 360 minus that 300. And tan 300 will now be equal to minus tan 60. If you evaluate this tan 300, this is going to give us tan 60, come here, opposite over adjacent, which is root 3 over 1. Root 3 over 1 will give us root 3. So it's negative root 3. You know why it is minus? Tan in the fourth quadrant is negative. Let me check the network situation and the clarity of the board so that we can do and round off. It's actually getting dark. I hope you're seeing my face and what I am doing here on the board. Now we are done with 300. Let us move on quickly to the next special angle. The next special angle is to add 15 to 300, which of course is going to be sine 315. Sine 315 is equivalent to, an acute angle in the first quadrant as minus sine 360 minus 315. 360 minus 315. And you'll agree with me that sine 315 will now be negative sine 45, because 360 minus 315 will give us 45. So sine 315 will now be equal to negative the value of sine 45. Sine 45, you use this right angle triangle. Sine 45 will give you 1 over root 2 minus 1 divided by root 2. So do you see, if you're evaluating sine 315, it is the same as you are evaluating minus sine 45 in the first quadrant. Remember what I stated in our last class yesterday, that if you know the value of all the angles in the first quadrant from 0 to 90, which we built this table for from these two right angle triangles, you don't have any business with any other special angle. The examiner can give you any special angle he or she wants, even if it is in the thousands. You can do the conversion, get the equivalent in the first quadrant, and the answer will be there. Let us evaluate cos 315. Cos 315 will be positive cos 45, fourth quadrant. The 45 is still from 360 minus 315 that you're trying to evaluate. And of course, cos 315 will now be equal to, what is cos 45? Once again, this right angle triangle, adjacent over hypotenuse. So that's going to be positive 1 divided by root 2. Positive 1 divided by root 2. Now, let us evaluate tan 315. I will now use these values to obtain tan 315. I will use the sine over cos, approach. You can use any one of them. Tan 315, you can convert it to tan 45 and still evaluate it. But I don't want to convert to tan 45 again this time. I want us to use the value of sine and cos to obtain tan 315. So tan 315 is going to be equal to sine 315 all over cos 315. Now, what was the value of sine 315 we obtained? I think the value was negative 1 over root 2. Now we are dividing it by cos 315 gave us positive 1 over root 2. Now, if you evaluate this, you agree with me that this root 2 will cancel out. So you have minus 1 over 1. Therefore, tan 315 is equal to minus 1, which is equivalent to tan 45. Tan 45 is 1 over 1, which will give you 1. But this tan 315 is in the fourth quadrant. Tan is negative there. It's only cos that is positive. So tan 315 is minus 1. Let us move on to the next special angle. The next special angle from 315 is obtained by adding 15 to 315. So we are going to evaluate sine 330. That's the next special angle. That's going to be equal to minus sine 360. Subject this 330 to the power of 360. Of course, that means you do the subtraction. That's the meaning of that grammar I'm using. Subtract 330 from 360. So to get equivalent of sine 330 degrees, it will be minus sine 360 minus 330 will give us what? 30. You see? It means that sine 330 degrees will be equal to minus sine 30, and sine 30 is 1 over 2 without wasting of time. Let us evaluate cos 330. Cos 330 will be equal to cos 360 minus 330, which is simply cos 30. Therefore, cos 330 is equal to, because you know that cos 30 is what? Root 3 over 2. Look at it from this triangle. So this is going to be square root of 3 divided by what? 2. And of course, we can go for tan 330. Tan 330 will be equal to tan 30 degrees. To be equal to tan 30 degrees. And of course, we can find that out. Tan 330 is equal to negative tan 30. Tan is negative in the fourth quadrant. So tan 330 will now be equal to negative tan 30, 1 over root 3. So it's going to be minus 1 over root 3. That's the value of tan 30. Let me check the network situation still once again. And then we are close to rounding off. We are close to rounding off, managing the light situation. Let's see. Okay, try to power something. Let's see how it goes. Okay. So we're evaluating the next special angle, I guess. Permit me to adjust this lighting system. Let's see. And now. Be patient. I'm trying to see if I can provide a little lighting system. All right, so we are close to rounding off. We just evaluated tan 330. After 330 degrees, what is going to be the next special angle? The next special angle is to add 30 degrees to 330, and you will get 360. So we shall evaluate sine 360, cos 360, and tan 360. So first, sine 360 will be equivalent to minus sine 360, and then you are going to still subtract 360 from it. You're still going to subtract 360 from it. You see? Because you're evaluating this sine 360. And it is in this fourth quadrant, you subject it to the strength, the power of that 360. Therefore, sine 360 will be equal to minus sine 0. Because 360 minus 360 is 0. Automatically, sine 360 will give us 0. Because sine 0 is 0. Minus 0 does not exist. It simply has 0 there. And this makes sense because 360 is on the horizontal I didn't even need to evaluate it. I did not need to evaluate it. Sine does not exist on the horizontal axis. Sine is negative on the horizontal axis. Is it sine is, sine does not exist on the horizontal, so it's meant to be 0 without evaluating anything. Let us evaluate cos 360. Cos 360 would be equivalent to cos 0. Would be equivalent to cos 0 because you are working cos 360 minus 360. And of course, we know that cos 0 is equal to 1. Cos 0 is equal to 1. Therefore, cos 360 will give us positive 1. Finally, let us evaluate tan 360. Tan 360. That's the last one. We have completed all the special angles in a circle. We have completed all the special angles in a circle. Tan 360. That's the last one. Tan 360 is going to be equal to sine 360. You can still evaluate it as tan 0 anyway if you want. That is tan 360 equal to tan 360 minus 360, which will give us 0. So this is going to be divided by cos 360. And then you have that tan 360 will now be equal to, what is the value of sine 360? Sine 360 gave us 0. And what is the value of cos 360? Cos 360 gave us 1. Therefore, tan 360 degrees will now be equal to 0 divided by 1. If you divide 0 by a non-zero digit, you will get 0. So tan 360, which is equivalent to tan 0, will give you 0. And that makes sense. Look at, when we evaluated it yesterday with this table, from this angle, see? From this right angle triangles, we obtain tan 0 to be equal to 0. So this is actually how you evaluate the sine, the cos, the tan of special angles. Quite simple, but extremely important that students are aware of this. So you're not going to examination hall, and when you see problems on angles, no calculator, you will not be thrown off. You don't need to allow that to happen. It's very simple. I'd like us to conclude with something. We have actually dealt with all the special angles in a circle. Yeah, from 0 down to 360 degrees. I want us to move a bit. You know, the next special angle after 360 now, 360 is on this horizontal. The next special angle, you start again, 30, 15, 15, 30. So if you add 30 to 360, you will get the next special angle. 360 plus 30 will give you 390. That is the next special angle. If you add 15 to 390, what would you get? Because that will now generate the next special angle again. That should be 405 degrees. 405 degrees. To generate the next special angle, you add 15 to that 405 degrees, you get 420 degrees. Let us evaluate sine, cos, and tan of 420 degrees. It is a special angle. Let's see how we do that. You see, we have gone beyond angle in a circle. We have gone beyond 360. I told you I was going to add a bonus to our work before we close. Okay, so let us add a bonus to it and then close today's class. And of course, the wonderful work on how to evaluate sine, cos, and tan of special angle. 420 degrees, I said. Sine 420 degrees. How will I evaluate this? If you notice, with 360, you are on this horizontal. Going above 360, you are rotating anti-clockwise again. You are rotating anti-clockwise again. Now, 420 will be subjected to the strength of 360. But since 420 is above 360, but of course that's in the fourth quadrant, in the first quadrant again. It's in the first quadrant. All you are going to do is to work with sine 420 minus 360. Sine 420 minus 360. And then sine 420 will be equivalent to sine 420 minus 360 will give you what? What will it give to you? To find out, 0 minus 0 is 0. Then you have 12 minus 6, which of course is going to be 60. It's going to be 60. So sine 420 is equivalent to sine 60. Remember, you're operating back again in the first quadrant. And in the first quadrant, both sine, cos, and tan, they are all positive. So do you see that with this, sine 420 is actually equal to sine 60? And of course, sine 60 is root 3 over 2. You can evaluate cos 420, which will give you cos 60. Still in the first quadrant, like I said. From 360, if you add 30, you get 390. Add 15, you see you have entered the first quadrant. Add 15, you get 405. Add another 15, you get 420. Still maintaining this. From 420 to get the next special angle, you add 30 to it. That will give you 450. And that lands you back. It lands you back on this 90 degrees exactly. So you can do that and generate those values on your own. Very wonderful analysis. So cos 420 is going to be equivalent to cos 60. And of course, cos 60 is 1 over 2. Cos 60 is 1 over 2. And of course, we can conclude with tan 420. Let me work on tan 420 here. Let me work on tan 420. Where will I do that? Tan 420 here. Will this show? Will it show? Yes. Tan 420. Okay, let me work it out here. Tan 420 will be equivalent to, if I choose to use this pattern, 420 minus 360, that will be equivalent to tan 60 again. So let me write it. This will be equal to sine 420 over cos 420. And again, it will be equal to tan 60. To be equal to tan 60. This is cool. Therefore, tan 420 will simply be equal to, what's the value of tan 60? You come to this, tan 60 TOA, opposite over adjacent. That is root 3. That is root 3. You could have used this directly if you wish. Root 3 divided by 2. Divided by 1 over 2, which is the equivalent of sine 420 over cos 420. And if you divide root 3 over 2 by 1 over 2, 2 will cancel, you'll be left with root 3. And this is wonderful. I hope you enjoyed this concept of special angles. I hope you really enjoyed it. I hope you really enjoyed it. And there's a reason why we have done this. There's a reason we have done this. I told you that in your mathematics, there are problems you might be given and you are asked to evaluate an angle that, a problem that involves angle, which are special angles. You don't need calculator. So if you are told not to use calculator, do you need to panic? Do you need to say the examiner is not considerate? No. The truth of the matter is, if you understand this, you'll be faster getting the results than using calculator. Don't worry, there is a physics question I'm going to solve by 9 o'clock p.m. Nigerian time, West African time, okay? 9 o'clock. Just one physics question. I'll be going on live still to solve that problem. And you will see how fast one can actually obtain the result. That problem is based on either you call it equilibrium of forces or you call it vector resolution. It's a jump question, and Unizik, Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Awka, has also asked that question as well too. You will see how swift I will solve the question, irrespective of the fact that angles are given there. Don't miss that class. So what I've done here is just to show you how you can be very fast in evaluating sine, cos, and tan of any special angle given to you without calculator. In maths, you need that. In physics, you need that. If you are yet to subscribe to this channel, please hit the subscription button right away. After subscribing, turn on the notification bell. Select all after you turn on the notification bell. These procedures are free of charge. If you subscribe and turn on notification bell, anytime I come on live or I upload any pre-recorded video lesson, you will be personally notified. This particular class, I started it without informing anybody. Yeah. But the truth is, if you're following up GMAETS 41, then you should know you are following up. Subscribe and turn on notification bell, so you'll be part of the class. Once the class begins, you'll be notified. Share the link to this video lesson to your friends. Invite them to also subscribe, please. Okay? So that you can learn and learn very well from this channel. You can support us more by becoming a channel member. You can join the platinum level or the diamond level, where you give us monthly support so that we'll continue to have the resources to assist you in your studies. Thank you for connecting, and I hope you are getting the benefit of what our God and Helper Jehovah has established for you, friends, through GMAETS 41. I'll be seeing you 9 p.m. Nigerian time. Until then, bye. All right, Chinedu, bye. Take care. Okora for John Udochukwu. Take care of yourself. See you later. Peter Adewale Ojedukun 16505. Thank you for connecting to the class. Take care of yourself. Raghavzan Vinkat. Did I pronounce it well? Take care of yourself. See you, friends, all later. Okay, those I was unable to call their names. Don't worry, I have you all in mind. Bye.